I've gone over 470 plus days on NoFap and even cured my corn induced ED. And in today's video, we are talking about how to finally quit the corn, get out of this vicious cycle of you feeling motivated, relapsing, and feeling like all of your progress is wiped out. Now, number one, admit your current system isn't working. Look at yourself in the mirror right now and think about how many times you've gone through this same cycle over and over again and expecting a different result, right? A lot of times we want to have this optimism that things are just one day going to change and switch up for us, when in reality, that's not how things work, right? If you take different actions, you'll get a different result. If you have the same actions, you'll get the same result. And a lot of people tend to think that the solution is just going to fly out of the air and hit them on the head. And eventually, they're going to be one day where they're free, they don't relapse, don't go through all PMO and all that type of stuff, right? But it's a lie. And your mind tries to rationalize this idea because you don't want to go through a process, right? You don't want to change. You want to stay stuck in the same exact position. So number one is understanding what you actually have to do if you want long-term results and actually want to change. You need to actually physically understand that unless you take different actions, you'll get the same result every single time. So stop assuming time is just going to fix your problem, right? Acknowledge that this is a failure and that you can change for sure, but you have to do something different. Number two, burn the bridges. Light the match, burn the bridges, don't go back. That's the type of mentality you have to have, right? Because burning the bridges literally means that I'm burning the bridges and there's no way I can go back, right? And think about it like this, right? Let's say someone, for example, has a side hustle, right? And then they have their main job. And what they do is they quit their main job and they stop putting time into it and go all in on their business. I guarantee you, at least they'll have better results than if they were doing one and one together, right? Because when you burn the bridges, you give your mind no option to get out, right? And a lot of you guys, you don't burn the bridges, right? You maybe leave an Instagram page open, right? Or you leave maybe a picture here and there or something like that. And what happens is your brain understands that you're not serious, right? You don't want to go all the way. You want to dabble here and there, put your feet in the water and just see how things are. But unless you're committed, right, 100%, and you actually want to change, you actually are burning the bridges and not looking back, you're not going to have long-term progress, right? And for a lot of you, you got to be motivated to have some other type of goal that you want, because I always say this is bigger than just changing your habits. It's really about what do you want to do with your life, right? What type of goals do you want to achieve? Because if you don't have these other goals, there's not going to be anything that's going to pull you in the right direction, right? But if you do have some sort of goals, there's something you want to achieve, you can literally, and I said this before and time again, transmute that energy into what you want to make it, right? But that's never going to happen if you just kind of half step and you don't go all the way. Like, you have to be serious, right? Think about even in terms of business. When someone's starting a business, literally the amount of time, energy, and attention necessary to start and scale something, make the money you want, is off the charts, right? You have to scale and put in a ton of time and effort, right? And the only way that you can do that is if you're focused on one thing and you're serious and you're putting all that energy into the one thing that you want to actually be successful. And this is literally no different. If you want to be successful in that area, man, burn the bridges, go all the way, or else you're just going to be in a position to where, you look back 5-10 years later and you're like, man, I wish I could have changed. I wish I could have been smarter with my decisions, right? So it's really the pain of regret, right? And you can change and you can, if you regret, you don't change, or it's the pain of discipline, right? So the pain of discipline or the pain of regret, but you can't choose both, right? It's only going to be one, and you're the only one that can actually change and control your life. Number three, structure your free time. This is an easy, quick win that you can do, right? So literally think about the free time that you have, when you tend to relapse, right? And look at these patterns. Look at your free time. Is it nighttime, right? Is it morning time when you just wake up? Whatever it is, man, plug these patterns, right? Maybe it's not keeping your phone in the room, but you have to really obsess and view what you're doing, right? Because a lot of times I always say it's the same pattern over and over again that you're going through, right? It's not some magic new type of thing that's happening. No, you're in a cycle, right? And it's the same thing over and over again, and you know that. So if you want to beat the cycle, put some structure into your life. And I know it doesn't sound good, right? It doesn't feel good to change what you're currently doing. But what's more painful, right? You being on this basically relapse cycle to where you continue to do it time and time again for years, decades. Maybe you miss out on a future partner, right? That you could get married to, having kids, all these different things just because you couldn't, and I'm not going to say discipline yourself, but you couldn't take different actions to change the results that you have in your own life. What you want to do is really build a schedule, right? So use Google Calendar is easy, right? You can literally put all of your time into Google Calendar, what you're doing for the day, right? Maybe it's training, right? Working out, going to work, other goals that you have, you can put time aside to work on these things. It helps you be accountable for the time and what you're spending your time on, right? Because at the end of the day, you only have a finite amount of time, and you can only make a mistake so many times. Eventually, right, we're all going to stop breathing, right? We're not going to be here anymore. And you don't want to, be on your deathbed and have a regret of, man, I couldn't get in control of this habit, and I sacrificed so much of my life for literally something that was meaningless. Now, if you're tired of going through this cycle, you're tired of relying on willpower and motivation and all of these fleeting things that you can't be fully in control of, and you want a step-by-step direction, someone who's gone through it and has come out the other side, cured the dysfunctions, went over 400 plus days, and became the type of man that he always knew was capable of. If you want to be that type of man, click my link in the description to check out my course where I break down exactly how I did it step by step, no sugarcoating at all. Number 4, socialize instead of isolate. I'll say this a million times until you get it, because you're probably still watching this video and haven't gone outside yet, haven't got more social. Socializing is one of the core foundations to this, right? Because a lot of people, especially nowadays, you can do so many things without other people, right? And you can be stuck in your phone, and literally stuck in your phone doing nothing else, scrolling all day, chilling in bed, right? And it's almost, I like to say, when it rains it pours, because it's almost like one bad habit leads to another, right? So let's say you eat some junk food. What happens? Man, you tend to relapse, right? Then you tend not to work out. Then you tend to just spend money on things that you don't need, right? And it's almost like when one area is not on point, the rest of these areas are terrible, right? And I've seen that time and time again, because how you do one thing is literally how you do everything. So you can't just tippy toe and expect, oh yeah, I'm going to do X, Y, Z, and it's just all going to be good. No, you literally have to make sure that when you do anything, that you do it with quality and excellence, right? And when we talk about socializing, man, go out and just talk to people. Because a lot of times you'll realize when you talk to people, you won't even be thinking about relapsing or all of these other things, right? Because you know that when you have people around you, this is literally what you were meant to do, right? You were meant to socialize, right? So there's certain plugs in these certain areas, right? That basically when you're watching the corn and all those things, you try to, you try to find a fix or a substitute for something else. So a lot of times socializing is a huge one, where when people don't get that, right, when you don't get relationships, when you don't get all of these types of connection, you try to find other places for it. And again, it's just your brain trying to go the path of least resistance, right? You don't have to go out and get rejected, right? You can literally just sit there and get all of that dopamine, but it's literally fake, right? You're not making any progress in your life, and you're going down deeper path that is not good for you. Now, number 5, environment shapes behavior. If you want to change your actions, right, and what you're doing, the easiest thing that you can do is change your environment. You don't have to swim against the tide, right, to change things, because of course that's painful and it's harder to do, right? The easiest thing you can do is instead swim with the current, right? If you want to swim with the current, the easiest thing you can do is change your environment. So literally you can do an audit of your environment and check out, maybe I shouldn't have the lotion in the room. Maybe I shouldn't have the tissues right there. But when you audit these type of things, it helps you gain better control without disciplining yourself, right? Because again, willpower is a finite resource. We want to do things that are not finite, right? So the easiest thing you can do is change your environment, right? Maybe that's you have to move somewhere. Maybe you have to change your room setup, right? Maybe you have to talk to new people, get around from other people, whatever you have to do, but you got to figure it out, because if you don't, you're going to be stuck in this cycle for the rest of your life. Number 6, remember the crash after relapse. Now, this is one thing too that you have to remember, right? And I do like to say, when it rains, it pours, because one relapse tends to lead to way more, right? So remember that there's always a crash, right? And you want to think even about, okay, man, how was it when I did relapse, right? Was it really worth it? And almost every time you're going to say no, right? And the urge, right, is always a high promise. It's like, man, this is going to be the best thing ever. But once you get to the other side, you're like, man, this was terrible. Why did I even do this, right? You get low energy, right? Your energy is depleted. You feel guilty. And you have even more regret about yourself, your situation, all these different things, right? It hits harder every single time. You literally feel it in your chest, in your stomach, right? Because you're like, man, I made so much progress, and now I'm back to square one. So keep in mind this pain that you've gone through, right? That nothing has changed. Literally keep this in mind, because it will motivate you to keep going. Now, number 7, shift from streaks to lifestyle. This is a lifestyle, right? All we're trying to do is live a healthier lifestyle. That's the simplest terms possible, right? Because in any area, right? You think if people eat a ton of junk food, maybe that's their dopamine hit, right? Maybe it's playing video games. That's another dopamine hit, right? And some people do get addicted to any of these things, right? So what we're trying to do is craft your environment, craft your life to live a healthier lifestyle, right? It's not about counting streaks, right? It's not about, being perfect, right? That's not it at all. It's about taking your time to understand your situation. What's the patterns? How can I look at these patterns, observe them, and actually change for the better? Because if you don't, you're literally going to be living a life full of regret, right? Imagine you're in a situation where you had someone that could have been your potential wife, right? Your lifelong partner. But since you weren't on point, since you weren't doing what you were supposed to be doing, you literally gave that up, right, for some pixels on a screen. Years down the line, how painful do you think that is, right? And that's literally happening to so many people. And people wonder why, there's less marriages, right? There's less people being intimate nowadays. All of these different things. It's because we have the tools necessary to basically satisfy all of our needs, right? Or at least fill them in with cheap stuff that's not the real thing, right? We have all these substitutes to satisfy yourself. And you got to take a step back, live in the real world, and remember, you can change for the better. It is possible, right? Open up your mind. It's possible, but you have to change. You have to take different actions. So don't do the same thing and expect a different result. Now, if you're interested in learning more about this topic, click this video on the screen.